Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So Gandalf is here. That's right. Lord of the Rings spoiler season, not here technically. That's not for quite some time actually. The next spoiler season I believe is the end of this month with March of the Machine. And Wizards is like, wait, no one's paying attention to us, and Hasbro stock is doing terrible. So here is a spoiler. Regardless, let's jump into it. Gandalf the Grey, a 3/4 avatar wizard that costs 3 blue red. So even though Gandalf is gray, it is not a colorless commander. It is an is-it commander, which I guess makes sense since Gandalf is a wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one that hasn't been chosen. You may tap or untap target permanent. Gandalf the Grey deals 3 damage each opponent. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose targets for the copy. Put Gandalf on top of its owner's library. So a lot going on here, and again, keep in mind, this is a commander that cares about when you cast instant or sorceries, and you get a benefit every single time you do so, as long as you aren't out of options. Again, it does not reset this, like every turn, essentially. But of course, there are plenty of ways to actually reset Gandalf, and one of them is, well, actually on the card itself. Again, you can technically put Gandalf on top of its owner's library. I might not recommend that, though, in a game of Commander, because, well, that can be a risky proposition in many ways. Because if you choose to put Gandalf on top of your library, your opponents, well, may have a way to potentially have you shuffle your library, and then your commander is kind of lost to you probably for the rest of the game. And if your deck revolves around your commander, which it most likely does, you're gonna be in big trouble. So that's a huge risk, a massive risk to undertake. I personally probably would never be utilizing that unless it was in some kind of a janky combo way, I would assume. But yeah, I mean, go for it if you really want to, but if you do and an opponent, chaos warps one of your things, you're going to be forced to shuffle your library, and your commander probably won't be on top anymore. Chances are very unlikely that would happen, and it might even be on the bottom of your library, and you might never see it again for the rest of the game. So yeah, definitely a risky proposition. Much more likely when you want to reset Gandalf. Instead, what you need to do is, well, simply blink Gandalf. Now, keep in mind with the way that this is worded, this is actually kind of strange because it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one that has been chosen. You can't decide to ignore this. This is going to happen. So if you, again, want to ensure that you are not losing Gandalf to the top of your library, which in some circumstances might not be a possibility, be careful. I mean, again, you technically, I believe, could instead put Gandalf in your command zone, so you might want to do that instead if you're worried that you might get shuffled. So, yeah, just be careful with this commander. It is one that has a good amount of potential. There's some crazy things that you can do with it, and there's a lot of value that you can get out of those first 3, choices, essentially. Tap or grant, tapping it permanent. 3 damage each opponent's a lot for just 1 instant or sorcery. Comping an instant or sorcery spell can be very broken. But again, be careful. And yeah, maybe I'm a bit too worried right now that your opponents, might, try to, mess with your library. And of course, there are ways that you can, work with that essentially. Like say, okay, your opponent's gonna maybe try to chaos swap plenty of things. Maybe you've got an instant speed, spell where you can actually just draw a card. So then you can just draw Gandalf back in your hand. So be careful. But yeah, make sure you have backup plans instead of trying to lose your commander. Now, as I take you through this episode with this quick take again on all these quick takes, well, I'm going to be taking you through some budget buys, cards that are within my budget, less than $1 per card. I'm also going to take you through some pricier picks, cards that are outside of my budget, some of which are much outside of my budget, so more than $1 per card. And yeah, every single one of these cards is going to be in a link in the description below, so if you are interested in this brand new exciting commander, make sure you check that link out. And yeah, this is an officially confirmed spoiler by Wizards, so yeah, if you're interested in this commander and, and other players might be excited about it too, and certain cards that work really well with it might go up in price, maybe pick up some of those cards sooner rather than later. And now with all that said, let's jump into it. First up, with that first part again, if you are choosing to tap, run, tap something, sure, that can just be a simple land. Maybe that's even one of your bounce lands, essentially, so it can tap for extra mana. Or, of course, it could be a mana rock, maybe like an Everflowing Chalice, which can tap for a lot of mana. Multi-kicker too, enters battlefield with that many charge counters on it for each time it's kicked. Taps, for each charge counter on it. So this can tap for, well, upwards of, 5, 6, 7 mana, whatever. It depends on how much you put into it to start. And when you're untapping something like this, well, you're kind of like just getting a ritual effect. You're you're tapping it for a ton, you cast a simple instant sorcery spell, which can be very small. You're going to be netting mana anyways, and then, yeah, you untap it and do it again. Glittering Stockpile, another one that works in a different way, though. Tap for a red, you get a stash counter on it, and at any point you can tap to sacrifice it to add amount of, X mana of any one color, or X number of stash counters on it. So again, by untapping something like this, where you can get more and more counters on it, you can then utilize it in a big splashy way. Speaking of big and splashy, one of my favorite cards from my childhood, Arcanus the Omnipotent. Tap, draw 3 cards. Yeah, Gandalf's got a wizard buddy in this one. Tap it for 3, draw 3, and then you just cast a simple instant sorcery spell, and you're like, oh, cool, untap Arcanus, draw another 3. Yeah, basically refill your entire hand, and then some. So, yeah, this is definitely a really good card in combination with Gandalf. Now, when it comes to that damaging option, again, 3 damage is a lot for just casting a single instant sorcery. Again, that's what, 9 damage in total in a game of Commander, right? Because you have 3 opponents. So because of that, let's throw a Loxodon and Warhammer onto Gandalf. I mean, can you picture Gandalf just wielding this giant Warhammer? Probably not, but you know what? Flavor-wise, doesn't really matter. You just equip it onto Gandalf. Gandalf gets +3, +0, trample, but most importantly, lifelink, because lifelink ensures that you're going to be gaining a ton of life with this brand new commander, because yeah, Gandalf is the one actually doing up the damage. 3 damage to all your opponents every single time you are getting that trigger. 9 life gain for you. And of course, yeah, there are plenty of ways to take advantage of that damage as well. Something like Dictate the Twin Gods. Double up that damage with this. Flash of a Source would deal damage to a permanent player, deals double damage to a permanent player instead. Keep in mind, this one is a bit more risky because it does affect you as well. There are definitely some more expensive, out of my budget, Gratuitous Violence, those kinds of cards, essentially, that double up damage to all of your opponents and not to you. Let's talk about, just a simple card like this one, though. There are plenty of tiny, awesome cantrips in these colors. Like scry 1, draw a card, single mana, instant speed. You are going to be able to get any of those fantastic triggers with something like this very easily. And again, with a cantrip like this, I probably went a bit too far when I said earlier, yeah, I would probably never put Gandalf on top of my library. Yeah, there are probably times when you really are kind of forced to do so, but also, again, by having a backup card like this, getting ready to get Gandalf back into your hand, again, in case, one of your opponents is like, Chaos Warp, and then you're like, oh no! So, yeah, having, a cantrip backup can be huge for a commander like this. Speaking of huge, again, if you are going to be utilizing a lot of those, maybe tap effects that are fantastic on cards like, Everflowing Chalice or Glittering Stockpile or Arcanus the Omnipotent, maybe have some other ways to untap them, like, a Dramatic Reversal, untap all non-land permanents you control, which of course is great and can be even better when you decide to copy it with Gandalf's trigger, because, yeah, what's not, better than utilizing all your mana rocks and, other tap effects in, one turn just once? Maybe twice, maybe 3 times, because again, getting a copy of this can just be an absurd amount of value, kind of like a mass ritual effect. And again, with, Arcanus, a mass draw effect as well. Reverberate. This was one of the first cards I thought about when I saw this trigger. This one is an instant that says copy target instant sorcery spell. Choose targets for the copy. A great card, and one, again, that can take advantage of other instant sorceries in the deck, but also with other cards I'll bring up here in a bit. It can go infinite with Gandalf's trigger. Again, copy target instant sorcery spell you control. Choose targets for the copy. So, yeah, you cast this. You say, cool, I'll copy my Reverberate, which copies my Reverberate, which copies my Reverberate. And you see where this is going, an infinite amount of copies. And yeah, there are certain ways to just win on the spot right there. Planar Incision, a blink spell, a great one at that. Exile target artifact or creature. So yeah, if you need to save one of your artifacts, great. You need to save Gandalf, great. Or when it comes to not saving, if you need to reset Gandalf, if you need to have those options back again, instead of, putting on top of your library or, recasting your command zone, just blink Gandalf. You got plenty of ways to get a lot of value out of this commander. And yeah, a blank spell like Planar Incision is a very simple way to reset that value. But now that we've talked about the budget buys, let's move on to the pricier picks, cards that are outside of my budget. And yeah, some Magecraft cards are getting really expensive these days. Stormkilled Artist is a great one, plus one with 0 for each artifact you control. Who really cares about that? But the most important part of this card is when you cast or copy into a source spell, create a treasure token. Again, it does mention cast or copy, so yeah, you can take advantage again of Gandalf's trigger, where you're like, hey, y'all, copy an instant or source spell. Cool, I get an extra treasure. Great. Or again, in Reverberate's case, I'll get an infinite amount of treasures. And of course, there are plenty of ways to win from there when you've got infinite treasures, infinite mana, and I guess, yeah, sure, that's when Stormkilled Artist power really comes into play. It's got infinite power as well, essentially. Okay, not infinite. Rule Slayers out there. a million, whatever. You have to pick a number. Still, Railstorm Conduit, well, it doesn't technically say Magecraft, but it's basically Magecraft. Whenever you cast, copy, and insert source spell, Railstorm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Again, if you infinitely reverberate, that's infinite copies, and an infinite amount of damage to your opponents and their planeswalkers, they are gonna be gone. And yeah, basically, there are plenty of different reverberate type of cards that can copy, so yeah, you've got a lot of options when it comes to going infinite with this brand new commander. Even if you're not going infinite, though, you can get a lot of value out of those triggers with Varen, Voice of Duality. If casting or copying an instant or spell causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers additional time. So getting an extra trigger off of, any of these Magecraft triggers, or yeah, just getting an extra trigger off of Gandalf, that can be massive. And speaking of massive, well, yeah, if you really want to go into kind of a solitaire direction, extra turn spells. Yep, this commander can very easily copy extra turn spells, so just do that. I mean, you take an extra turn with, again, like, a time warp. Sure, why not that one? Which is also one that you can get back out of your graveyard because it doesn't get exiled. Or how about time stretch? Target player takes 2 extra turns off this one. You're going to be targeting yourself. And also, this one doesn't exile either, so you can get out of your graveyard. So, yeah, on your off turns, or not your off turns, but your extra turns where your opponents really can't really do much to stop you, you're just going to be like, okay, yeah, find a way to blink Gandalf. Find a way to get this back in my graveyard. Cast it again, copy it again. Okay, more extra turns. Let's just rinse and repeat. Yeah, definitely a way that you can win if you like Solitaire. Grab that Exoskeleton, another way that you can win if you like Infect and Poison counters. This is definitely a way for you. Grab that Exoskeleton says, +2/+2, and Infect. And again, Gandalf is going to be the one that's dealing out the damage, so giving Gandalf Infect means that Gandalf's going to be dishing out poison counters to your opponents instead of regular damage. So yeah, 3 at a time, or yeah, if you got a doubling effect, 6 at a time, there can just be 2 of those triggers. That's all you would need to take your opponents out. Now, obviously, with this, you have to resuit up Gandalf each time because you might need a blanket, or put it on top of your library and come back out. Of course, you've got plenty of ways to utilize this effectively, though, with this commander. Moving on, though, Empowered Auto Generator. I was really disappointed to see this one is no longer within my budget. It was not too long ago. Now it's like $2.50 or so. Regardless, a great mana rock. Enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap for a charge counter on it. Then it adds X mana of any one color, X number of charge counters on it. So again, being able to untap a mana rock such as this can be massive because you're not only getting, the mana out of it again, but even more every single time you're building on that. You're making more charge counters onto it so that you can utilize it in an even bigger way with that untap effect. Conjurer's Closet. Yeah, this is going to be really good, this kind of a commander. And again, a card that I don't think's ever really been budget ever since I started playing Commander, and I don't know if it ever will be, even if it keeps getting reprinted, because it has so many applications out there. Beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature control, then return that card to the battlefield under control. Basically, hey, blink a creature at the end of your turn. Yeah, lots of decks can utilize that. And again, this is basically just, hey, do you just want to reset Gandalf every single one of your turns so you can just utilize it incredibly effectively? Yeah, sign me up for that. Speaking of signing me up for something, Wizards! Reprint Essence Flux! Everyone tell Wizards to reprint Essence Flux, please. My goodness, a very simple blink spell. And for some reason, I know for some reason, it's like a $2 card at this point. Wizards, reprint it. Very simple, very good card. Should not be $2 because it needs a reprint. Please do so. Thank you. It also, I guess Spirit decks out there are like, yeah, cool, I get a counter. But yeah, the more important part is blinking for 1 mana. Please reprint it. But now this episode is wrapping up. It's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Gandalf the Grey. Yeah, this is a very interesting commander. Again, not a May. Whenever you cast those instant sorceries, you get extra value, but also at a certain point, you're going to have to put Gandalf on top of your library, and that might not be a good thing. Now, there are going to be times where that can be a good thing again if an opponent is trying to destroy Gandalf, and you're like, well, no, I will not have that. I shall cast a simple spell to put it on top. But again, you need to be careful because you do not want to get in the situation where Gandalf goes bye-bye forever, essentially, when your opponent Chaos Warps your whatever else, essentially, in play, and then Gandalf gets shuffled further into your library, and then you never find Gandalf again. So yeah, it's, just be careful with that. It's a very, flavorful card. Gandalf can do a lot of exciting and very powerful things, and also, just sometimes during the journey, Gandalf just disappears, and then comes back. So yeah, definitely an interesting card. I think a lot of players out there are going to be very excited about it. If you're one of those players and you're looking to build around this commander, consider checking out that link in the description below. It's got the list of cards I talked about on this episode, and consider picking up some sooner rather than later, because again, when an exciting brand new commander like this one is spoiled, even though it's not going to be coming out for a while, some players out there decide to, pick up certain cards that are going to work really well with it way ahead of time. And yeah, you might want to do so too. And another thing you might want to do, stay tuned to this channel for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers, because I've got a feeling that Wizards is not done just yet. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so now it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are on this episode. And yeah, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.